know that you were obviously all about acting and playwriting. So when did you make the transition from I want to be an actor of someone else's words to I want to write those words? And when was it just when you were reading so much that you had that inkling of, oh, I could also do fiction? Or had you had aspirations before that?
So in terms of the acting to playwriting, when I went to Northwestern, part of their theater program is that no one's allowed to come in and just say, I'm an actor and all I'm going to do is act. They require you to learn all the different elements of the theater, and you have to take design classes and you have to stage manage and you have to do everything. And even if you end up being only an actor, that is really valuable because you're a better actor if you understand what goes into all the other disciplines around you, right?
And more employable between gigs, I imagine.
Well, that's true too, yeah. And so I came in very open-minded, and I ended up having a playwriting teacher who was just incredibly inspiring. His name is John Logan, and he won the Tony Award for Best New Play for a play called Red, but he's probably better known to a wider audience in film and television. He's the creator and writer on Penny Dreadful, and he also has been nominated for several Academy Awards for Hugo and Gladiator and The Aviator. So, but at the time, he was still at Northwestern. He's not anymore. Teaching playwright.
Oh, you're spending all that Gladiator money, my God.
Well, it was funny because when I was in college, he was just starting to get a name in Hollywood. And so he would fly to LA for most of the week. And then he would fly to Chicago. We would have one class a week that was 3 hours long because he spent most of the week back in LA. And then he'd come back to teach his class and then he'd go back to LA. But he was incredibly inspiring. And I happened to also have an acting professor that year who I loathed. And so it's sort of the power of the right teacher, you know. I had this playwriting professor who was just incredibly magnetic and wonderful and who saw something in me and put a lot of time into me, and this acting teacher who was not any of that. So yeah, I went toward playwriting largely because of him and that class, and I wrote my first full-length play in college and it won an award and got fully produced. So I was on that path of this is what I'm going to be doing, playwriting, as soon as before I left college and when I got out of college. I never thought about fiction for a second until, like I said, when my kids were small and I really couldn't do theater anymore and I was reading so much fiction.
I'm a big believer that every writer should take an acting class. I know when I talked with Lance Rubin, who was also an actor for a long time, turned young adult novelist, and still actor, I think. We were both adamant that this is, my high school musical days have come in handy the rest of my life. I figured out pretty early on I didn't have the determination to be an actor. I'm looking at Christian Bale like, wait, you got to lose how much weight within how much time? Yeah, no, that's not me. I'm going to write something. But that still comes in handy. It's coming in handy right now, hosting a podcast, and having that poise just to get up on stage or any event that you're ever going to go to promote your work. But it also really helps to learn how to know the interior workings of a character intimately in a way that writing the overall story doesn't necessarily lend it to, although it's more fun because you get to be all the characters.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I also think the ability to make bold choices, good actors are willing to make really bold choices, particularly in like rehearsal and stuff when they're still exploring a character. And, something bold, even when it ends up being wrong, is a lot more interesting than just a, flat sort of careful performance. And I think the same is probably true in writing. You've got to go for it and try it. Unless you try it, you won't know. I never liked improv. I'm far too in need of control. But I think that an improv class is something that probably everybody would benefit from too. And like you said, in hosting this podcast, and as an author, you end up talking to groups of people and doing book events. I had the great fortune to meet Laurie House Anderson a few years ago, just very briefly. And in my brief moments with her, she said, here's my advice to you. She knew my debut novel was coming out. She said, are you an introvert? And I said, yes. And she said, okay, yes, me too. She said, so is everyone else in this room, which was a huge mixer of authors and teachers of English at the NCTE conference. And she said, you learn how to play a character that is your author character, and that's what you put on when you're doing a cocktail party like this, or you're doing a school visit, or you're doing a whatever. And it's not that you're inauthentic, but if I was 100% authentic, I would be in my pajamas, not talking to anyone, right? But it's a form of acting, and I'm able to draw on that because when I do events and whatever, I'm able to be this author person. And sometimes when my kids see me, they just think it's so weird because I'm not really out there like that in day-to-day life. And then they'll see me do an event and they're like, what are you doing? But
Mom's wearing pants and leaving the house. What is this?
Right. It's very strange for them to see me talking to people.
That's when my son gets. That's how I knew I was working from home too much. My son would get antsy if he saw me put on actual pants instead of sweatpants. Like, oh no, Daddy's gonna leave.
Oh yeah, my kids do that too. If I am dressed in anything but pajamas, they get this panicked look. Not so much my 14-year-old, but my 9-year-old. Where are you going? He knows I'm going out.